I've been enjoying the series that we've had on Galatians. It's been awesome on Christ's freedom for us. And tonight, my topic is from Galatians chapter 3, verses 1 to 8, which I'm going to read for you. But my title is Detour, Deception, and Spiritual OCD. On Valentine's Day, you may not know this about me, but I have 5 grandchildren. And I am the ultimate, the consummate, crazy grandma. I will do anything for my grandchildren, literally. I won't give up my salvation. But when I go to their house, I go up to their room, and I had to clarify. I go up to their room, and I have a almost 2-year-old, and I'll get on the floor, and he'll ride me like a horse, and I don't get tired, and I buy them things that they want but they don't need, and I do anything for my grandchildren. I just enjoy them so much, and it's nice because at the end of the night I get to send them home, and you get to stay up all night with them, right? But on Valentine's Day, we decided that we were going to go visit my grandchildren, the ones that live close to me. So we go, and the traffic was crazy that night. I don't know what it was. Everybody buying flowers, I don't know. But when we got on the road, the traffic was so bad, and I couldn't wait to get to see my grandchildren. And my husband, he just pulled off the road. He said, let's go another way. So we pulled off the road, but mistake. We ended up in worse traffic. So detours are not always better. As a matter of fact, many times they're not. Now, fortunately for us, it wasn't a really big mistake, and we can get there a little later, but we didn't get lost. But when I read these scriptures right here in Galatians, which I'm going to read to you because they're full of pathos and emotion, has been said before in this course, that Paul is very, very upset with the Galatians. And I see a father's heart, has been said here before, saying, what in the world is going on? I leave you for a few minutes and you get into trouble. Can you see it?
That's good, yes.
So I'm going to read this to you. It says, you foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified? This is the only thing I want to find out from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law, or by hearing with faith? Are you so foolish? There's that word again. Having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? Did you suffer so many things in vain, if indeed it was in vain? So then, does he who provides you with the Spirit and works miracles among you do it by works of the law, or by hearing with faith? Even so, Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness, counted to him as righteousness, is another way of saying that. Therefore, be sure that it's those who are of faith, who are sons of Abraham. The scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, all the nations will be blessed in you. Now, as I'm looking at this, I just saw my detour that night. I see the Galatians taking a very foolish detour. They're being led off the road that their father, Paul, their spiritual daddy, who had given them Christ and given them freedom in Christ, now they decide, you know what, this way seems better to me, so I'm going to go off and do a detour. And Paul, when he hears this, is alarmed, so much so he calls them foolish, and he tells them they were bewitched. And one powerful thought, several that I found that really crystallized this for me, is one of the commentaries said that their heresy, now listen to this, their heresy was not Christological. That means their heresy was not having to do with the doctrine of Christ. But their heresy was soteriological, relating to the doctrine of salvation. Now that's a very important point. They still were saying Jesus is the Messiah, Jesus Christ is the Messiah, but they were saying my salvation is not enough by works, by faith, so I have to introduce the law. I have to bring in other things. And Paul calls them foolish, which the description of is not understanding, unwise, not applying our minds, lack of understanding. And it even describes one who does not govern his lusts and associate it with evil desires and lusts. In other words, somebody who's been let off the path somehow. And it may even be, we'll talk about some of the other things that might have happened a little bit later, but it may have been that their pride got in the way, or their inferiority got in the way, or something. They allowed these Judaizers, they allowed these teachers that were false to take them from where their father had taught them. I loved your example, Wayne, of, when you were 13 and how, you had gone off the path. Thank God for Mom's prayers.
Amen.
I thank God for my mom's prayers, and I know a lot of you do. I think Paul is saying, please, I'm shocked, I'm alarmed. So soon, you've forgotten what I've taught you, what I've given my life to impart to you. And he even called them in the message, ready? You crazy Galatians! You crazy, foolish Galatians! You want to go back to slavery? Now, they understood the term slavery much more than we do. That had to be shocking. I hope this letter woke them up. I hope this letter shocked them when they realized they were going from being free to going back into slavery. Crazy Galatians. And my other commentary also mentioned this, that this was one of Paul's angriest letters, has been said here. He was angry. He usually, as was said before, he usually says, oh, blessings to you, I greet you, and the church. But he goes cuts right to the chase. He says, Weidman says, I don't think it is overstating the case to say Paul was fighting for the very life and integrity of the gospel. This was no light thing. And he goes on to say, like a freight train, not a runaway, but one that is being engineered with purpose and determination, this letter leaves the station fast and furious and with one purpose, to deliver its content effectively and efficiently. Do you feel that when you read this? Do you feel that Paul is on a mission to say, stop! I don't know how you got on this detour, but please, get back on the right road of the gospel of who Christ is. Don't add to it. He is the Messiah, but you don't need the law too for salvation. You don't have to introduce these things. It's bringing confusion. I also think he was addressing the deception when he said, again, very strong terminology in verse 1, who has bewitched you? I looked up that word. It's to bring evil on a person by feigned praise, to mislead by an evil eye, and so to charm, leading into evil doctrine. According to Vines, it's used figuratively, meaning leading into evil doctrine. The Message again says this: did someone put a hex on you? Who put a curse on you? Have you taken leave to your senses? What's happened to you guys? Are you not thinking that you are mixing this up? That you are confusing salvation? We know that this audience was probably Gentile believers who were being swayed to incorporate things of the law like circumcision, maybe dietary restrictions, and things that they were not to be in partake of. I remember, being in the ministry a long time. My husband had once, when we first went into ministry as youth pastors, he was bivocational, and he would try to do different things to try to support, our family. And he started doing painting. His father was a painter, so he went into painting. And he went and he painted this house. And you know what? He won this woman and a family to the Lord. Her name was Eileen. And she started coming to church, and she started getting really involved. And it was a beautiful thing. However, at one point, something happened. At one point, I could see that she was being deceived. She started to gather some of the youth, the young people around her, and we were youth pastors, and I had that protective instinct, that mother instinct over them. And I could see, one time in the middle of the service, and I believe in the baptism of the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues, but one time in the middle of the service, she just, in a fairly large congregation, she just screamed at the top of her voice in a blood-curdling thing in the middle of a message, speaking in tongues, out of order. And every time we would try to put her back into divine authority, not rulership, but divine authority, she would rebel. And she came to my husband and she said, I feel I'm supposed to be the youth pastor. So he said, well, God hasn't told me that, which was a nice way of saying, are you crazy? But you know what she said to him? She said, God told me. And I think to myself, here's someone who is won to the Lord, who is led to the Lord, who is given a beautiful hand of fellowship and welcome into the group, who went off on a tangent, on a detour that was dangerous. And this woman really started going off till she was gone. And we tried our best to control any damage with the other people who were affected by her. And who was it, one of the weeks that we had that said not only when we're in false doctrine are we affected, but eternity is affected, like Lee said, and others. And believers after us are affected. When we go off the cliff, we take others with us, unfortunately. So this deception, this bewitching, was a terrible thing. And it is true that these Jewish Christians who were bringing this in, they were refuting Paul's gospel. They didn't like the thing that faith alone is sufficient for salvation. They didn't like that teaching. They felt that there's got to be more. And so they were telling the Galatians, there's got to be more. You got to obey the law. There's got to be more. And also, has been mentioned in the previous weeks, that there was a smear campaign against Paul. Something that these were people or emissaries from Jerusalem who didn't agree with what they were saying for the Gentiles, who came and stirred up trouble for them and tried to turn people against them. So there was a detour, there was deception, but there was, I believe, what I call spiritual OCD. Now, I have never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have OCD. I'm pretty sure that I'm a perfectionist and things just irk me if they're not right. Like, like a picture frame on the wall is not quite right or something. So the other day, we had 4 lanterns on our pathway, and what bugged me is one of them stopped working. It just aggravated me. I cleaned the top of it. There was solar. I did everything that I can do. And then I took out the battery and then went in and I saw the exact number that I had to order these batteries. And I ordered the batteries for it. And guess what? When it came, I put it back on the lantern and I couldn't wait for nighttime. I wanted to see if all 4 lanterns were going to work. Guess what? They did. All 4 lanterns worked. I can't tell you how stupid it was, but I was so happy over that. I was so happy that all 4 lanterns worked. And so the next day as I'm coming down my stairs, I look out my door, and I look at the lantern that we had just fixed, and it was tilted. I was like, no, this can't be right. So I go out, and I turn it gently, and it didn't move. It was still a little lopsided. So I turned it harder and harder, not realizing that there was like something in the ground that was holding it where you can't turn it that way. And guess what? I snapped it off. I broke the lamp. I came into my husband. I said, please forgive me. I realized OCD gets you nowhere. Perfectionism got me in a worse state of mind. At least in the daytime, all four of them looked beautiful until I could buy the next one. But now I have a limping, broken lamp. Perfectionism doesn't get us anywhere. And any of you struggle with this, you know that it's impossible to achieve this. But I think that maybe that's what happened to the Galatian church. Maybe they started to say, you know what, how can it be that it's this simple? You know, how can it be that faith in Jesus Christ alone is all I need? So you know what, it makes me feel better when I do certain things. It makes me feel better when I'm fulfilling some of the things on the law. Someone else said it. I feel a little better than my neighbor who doesn't do that. Or I feel maybe spiritual pride came in. Or maybe an inadequacy. God, it can't even be that you would have died for me, that you love me, that it's this simple. God, there's got to be more to this. And when we start to struggle with spiritual OCD, where we're trying to earn perfection in ourselves, we are a target for the enemy. We have to get back to that pure and simple gospel in Jesus Christ. We could have never done it on our own. If we could have, Christ would not have had to come. The law would have led us to righteousness. It could not have, as we all have said. So, getting back to that pure and simple devotion to Christ. In Galatians 5:1, which I'm sorry whoever has that, I don't know if they're in this class anyway, but it says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. So stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Stay free. Stay free. It's not only to get free, it's to stay free, to stay on the road, to not take a detour, to not let deceivers who come and try to take you from the gospel that you know is taught to you with purity and sound doctrine and accountability. That people will come. I mean, do you think that maybe that's how cults start? That false religions start that way? Somebody takes a little bit of truth. And, you know, I just say that it's a dangerous thing. That's why Paul was so anxious to get them straightened out. Because he knew the danger in this. Just like somebody like a Jim Jones. I don't know if you've ever heard that story, but I'll tell it another time. But he led so many people to commit suicide, telling them that he had the way. So let's make sure we stay on the path of freedom. God bless you. Woo!